a political earthquake has shaken the uneasy calm between London and New Delhi. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi has officially blocked a high-level Labour delegation from entering India, just hours after Keir Starmer accused Delhi of sliding toward authoritarianism. The impact in Westminster was instant. Visas revoked, meetings cancelled, the Foreign Office in chaos. For the first time in modern history, it was Britain, not India, that was denied entry. And from that silence, a new chapter of humiliation began. London was stunned. The empire that once ruled half the world had just been told no. In Westminster, confidence turned to panic. Phones rang. Ministers argued. No one had a plan. Starmer's aides whispered the word they feared most: humiliation. The Foreign Office spoke of procedure. Delhi spoke of respect. One hid behind rules. The other drew a line. 2 days earlier, Starmer had accused India of silencing dissent and abandoning democracy. Words that sounded noble in Westminster, but imperial in Delhi. When India responded, it wasn't diplomatic, it was historical. A senior minister said it plainly: "We will not be lectured by our former rulers." Within hours, the pound fell to 106 rupees, its lowest in months. Traders warned that £28 billion in bilateral trade could collapse. Applause thundered through India's parliament. This is not defiance. This is independence. For decades, Britain had spoken down to India, the teacher addressing the pupil. Tonight, the pupil closed a classroom door. This clash wasn't about visas. It was about memory. Britain once called itself the world's teacher, but from Bengal's famine to Delhi's railways, it took more than it ever gave. The empire ended on paper, not in tone. Starmer spoke of virtue. Modi answered with sovereignty. Respect is not a courtesy, Delhi declared. It's a condition. The numbers tell the rest. India's GDP now exceeds Britain's by $700 billion. Its population is 20 times larger. Its defense budget has doubled in a decade. London preaches principles. Delhi projects power. This was never about trade. It was about who leads the century. The empire that once drew the map now watches its own borders redrawn. Buckingham Palace stayed silent. No statement, no outrage, only an easy dignity. King Charles, aides say, reached out privately to Delhi, not with threats, but with caution. He understood what his ministers did not. This wasn't a diplomatic bruise. It was a historic fracture. Across Europe, papers called it Britain's quietest collapse. The world had moved on. Westminster had not. Its speeches echoed like museum exhibits, relics of relevance. Inside the palace, unease grew. For a monarch raised on the myth of the Commonwealth, watching India shut its doors wasn't politics. It was punishment. Downing Street rehearsed apologies. The Foreign Office drafted pleas. But nothing could erase the image a kingdom once obeyed, now waiting to be acknowledged. The crown still shines, but its command has dimmed. The Commons filled with anxious murmurs. "We're not leading," one official admitted. "We're reacting." It was the most honest line spoken in Parliament all week. Outside, pubs spoke louder than politicians. "They can't even defend an apology," one man said. "What will they defend next? Our dignity." Inflation rose, trust fell, faith vanished, and somewhere between the two, Britain's self-belief disappeared. At the cenotaph, an old soldier left a note: "We fought for respect, not regret." The cameras noticed. The government did in single quotes. Soon, headlines about India faded, replaced by those about Britain's collapse. Hospitals strained, food banks overflowed, and yet ministers still spoke of global leadership. On talk radio, one caller said quietly, "Maybe it's not them. Maybe it's us." The silence that followed was national. When nations stop believing they matter, they don't fall, they fade. Britain wasn't conquered. It simply retreated from itself. Across Africa and Asia, headlines read, "The pupil surpasses the master." No triumph, no mockery, just balance. And that was humiliation enough. Even Washington think tanks began to whisper, Britain's relevance is now ceremonial. The phrase spread like prophecy. The irony was cruel. The empire that once measured the world by longitude has lost its own direction. Power has moved east, not stolen, not seized, simply outgrown. By week's end, India signed a new digital trade corridor with Japan and South Korea. The world applauded. London issued a statement. History didn't notice. In British classrooms, the empire now sounds like fiction. The young apologize for what their ancestors built. The old apologize for what their children forgot. Between them stands a nation unsure what to defend. Starmer's stumble wasn't just diplomatic. It was generational exposure. A mirror held to a country that no longer recognizes its reflection. On social media, the young mock empire nostalgia. In care homes, veterans turn off the news. The generations don't argue anymore. They disconnect. When nations forget their story, they become extras in someone else's. Britain's power didn't die. It dissolved in indifference. In Birmingham, a retired officer told a reporter, "We once ruled the waves. Now we drown in self-doubt." The line trended for a day, then vanished. Like the country it described, history's final cruelty isn't loss, it's irrelevance. Empires die twice, first by conquest, then by forgetting, and Britain is running out of both. As Westminster debates tone, Delhi redraws maps. India, Brazil, Japan, and the Gulf form a new digital alliance. Without London, no war, no revolution, just choice. The Commonwealth is now a ghost of convenience. Soft power without respect is just nostalgia. The world listens politely, then moves on. A Washington analyst put it best: Britain still speaks fluent English. The world now speaks fluent independence. That phrase went viral. Investors began calling Delhi the new London. But even that felt outdated. India isn't replacing Britain. It's surpassing it. The empire once controlled trade routes. Now trade controls the empire's memory. The sun didn't set on Britain. It simply forgot to rise. Empires rarely end with surrender. They end with silence. And tonight, that silence belongs to Westminster. The king remains. The flag still flies. But the meaning behind them has thinned. India didn't dethrone Britain. Britain outlasted itself. Pride without reflection becomes parody. Leadership without humility becomes memory. And perhaps that's the lesson. History honors those who adapt, not those who reminisce. If you've stayed with us this far, you already sense it. The century has changed hands. Subscribe to Newsuck, where truth is spoken without permission, and silence is never our policy.